I just, here we are. Here we are. Yesterday would have been the 97th birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is the MLK weekend. And then, of course, the federal holiday is on Monday. And I just simply don't have any patience whatsoever with silent and complicit Negroes. To me, if you have these black folks in Texas and other parts of the country who are sitting there silent and who are watching as individuals want to roll us back and launch Jim Crow 2.0, and they do nothing. When you look at the racial attacks of Donald Trump that are taking place all across this country, unleashed against African Americans, and these Negroes defend him like he's their daddy. And yes, I'm talking about you, Byron Donalds. I'm talking about you, Burgess Owens. I'm talking about you, Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt. I'm talking about you, Senator Tim Scott. They absolutely say nothing. And then you have these black Republicans who sit on these boards who are all about getting the check. And let me be perfectly clear, okay? I personally know black Republicans and black conservatives who don't support this mess, who have spoken out. I know them, but I'm telling you right now, I will not be silent and watch as these lackeys throw us under the bus for personal gain, to fatten their pocketbooks, to be accepted at Mar-a-Lago and in these country clubs. And I'm sorry if these folks don't give a damn about them and they are there for window dressing, and they need to be called out, and they deserve to be called out. And Raven, on this weekend, I don't want to hear shit from any of these white MAGA folks or the black ones using King quotes and talking about any of that, because none of these people give a damn about the agenda that King was advancing then and would be advancing today.
Nah, they can keep all that virtue signaling to themselves and stay real quiet over these next few days, 100%. You know, Black MAGA and Black Republicans and the overlap they're in, because sometimes they distinguish, so deeply bizarre to me. You know, I think the crux of those sentiments and leaning into those identities is really rooted in a fundamental belief they hold, that if they are proximal enough to white supremacy and white supremacists, it will give them access to power and it will keep them safe. And there is some truth to that, but safety in the cradle of white supremacy is always conditional, even for white people. And they're going to have a very rude awakening, because if the leopards haven't eaten their face already, they're sure getting ready to. So I feel sorry for them. I do. I feel sorry for them. And this is not me saying that unity means conformity, right? When we talk about folks on the left, we're a broad base. We have lots of different sentiments, lots of different positionalities. And I think that's the argument I see coming from Black MAGA and Black Republicans sometimes. Well, I don't want to do that because that's what you expect me to do, and I'm not just going to follow in line, and Democrats haven't worked for me. Like, it's like the ultimate boss of I'm not like the other girls, you know? Just because you're not doing what the majority of Black folks are doing doesn't make you good or right. Why aren't you asking yourself the question, why are most Black folks not aligning themselves with these people? There is a reason for that. And yeah, to my earlier point, they're in for a very rude awakening, and I don't want to hear nothing from them about MLK, because everything they're doing is in diametric opposition to what that man stood for.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland, as I alluded to earlier, you're going to have all these Republicans. You're going to have probably Donald Trump as well, and Black MAGA talk about how great Dr. King was while they worked to dismantle his legacy. And we've seen a history of this over the past 10 years or so. So they can keep all that nonsense. We need to call them out on that hypocrisy while they are implementing Project 2025. In my last check, last time I checked, 48% of the 318 policies of Project 2025 have been implemented, as the Project 2025 tracker shows. And most of these people never read any books that Dr. King wrote. He wrote 5 books. They never read any of his complete speeches. Don't really understand Dr. King. And he was calling out the Republican Party back in 1964 as well. What the Republican Party was moving towards. He was calling it out. So he wasn't just criticizing white liberals. he was also criticizing the Republican Party. And contrary to popular belief, he was neither Republican nor Democrat as well. So you're going to see a whole bunch of BS this weekend. And I've done extensive research on Dr. King. I've written articles, interviewed historians on him. But I don't get into this whole National Day of Service. I focus on teaching the real history of the revolutionary Dr. King. And I learned a lot from the interview, Roland, that you did a few years ago on News One Now with Roland Martin when you had Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. on that wrote the book, This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. And in that book, it talks about how Dr. King owned guns until Bayard Rustin convinced him to get rid of his guns. One person referred to Dr. King's house as a known arsenal. So we need to stop with this nonsense that they spread about Dr. King and challenge them every step of the way, because most of these people don't know what they're talking about when it comes to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose real name was Michael. Okay, his father, Michael Sr., changed his name because Michael Sr. went to the Holy Land and changed the name to Martin Sr. and Martin Luther King Jr.
Matt.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the last segment was about, what's going on at a little school out in the middle of nowhere. It's really a tragic thing. Such things have not happened at Howard University, from my understanding, but we can discuss that in earnest later. In any event, I think Michael and Raven have said
those things are happening at your parents' alma mater, University of Texas.
Notice I didn't talk about the University of Texas. That's neither here nor there. I'm going to continue making my comment, which is this. I think Dr. King would talk about all of the verses in the Bible that talk about strangers, and then would full-throatedly denounce ICE and what's happening. And what we know is they're going to do the same political pageantry where they use him as a mascot, as they do every year, despite the fact that were he alive, they would be calling him everything but a child of God. So we know that that's going to happen. I think Michael and Raven said that, and it doesn't surprise me what's happening at Texas A&M University.
Well, the reality is the New York Times did a huge story talking about how the right wing is doing the exact same thing at the University of Texas. I just saw a story the other day with a chancellor at Texas Tech University when it came to, he literally crapped all over gender studies and said, hey, if you want to study that stuff, this ain't the place for you. What the right wing in Texas is doing, and I'm talking about Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and see, this is again why voting matters. When you talk about this whole deal and how these things are not changing right now, Abbott is sitting on $106 million to run for re-election governor of Texas. And so they're going to swamp the state. Can he be beaten? Yes, if the state gets organized. But if Democrats continue to play these silly games and not focus on going into black communities and going into Latino communities and having a message and talking to people on the ground, you're going to keep losing. I do not believe for a second Texas does not have to be a solid red state. I remember when people claimed Georgia was a solid red state. We see that as well. But the reality is, and I'm going to say this again, folks, what we have is we've got the right-wing Taliban right here in the United States. That's what we have going on right now. And these people, they want to drive a white supremacist agenda, and we had better understand this 100%. So on this weekend, and I'll say this here, Michael alluded to this here, and I'll speak on it as well. I don't give a shit about day of service. Let me say this again, okay? And this has been my chief criticism when it comes to how we have treated Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement, or what I call the Black Freedom Movement. I am sick of Dr. King being positioned as a civil rights bobblehead. I'm sick of people sitting here saying, oh my God, Dr. King wanted all of us to get along. Dr. King wanted us to get together and to do these things together. No, Dr. King was a radical. Dr. King was somebody who had a radical vision for this country. He was not just about, oh, can we all just be nice and wonderful and get along? No, that was not the case. He was a radical. And so we have to act like it. If you ask me, what would Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King say or do this weekend or Monday, it would not be a day of service. He would not be at a food bank. He would not be serving meals. He would not be planting trees. He would be leading a mass protest. He would be leading mass protests against the actions of ICE. He would be leading a mass protest against the anti-black agenda of Donald Trump and MAGA. So really what really has to come back is this radical king. That's what has to come back. And so what needs to happen when we have all of these celebrations, we black people have got to stop this bullshit of the bobblehead figure. I spoke last night to the Columbus Education Association, and we had some issues. The live view server, something happened, so it crashed, and so we didn't finish streaming the speech. Keenan let me know if they finally sent us the speech and if it's ready so we can stream it tonight. And this is what I said to them last night. And what they did was they played a portion of Dr. King's speech, and they really played, I dare say, the last 4 to 5 minutes of that sermon he gave on April 3rd, 1968 at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. And what I said to them was, please do me a favor, stop playing that part. And I appreciate the mountaintop part. I appreciate that. But in the same 43-minute and 16-second sermon, Dr. King talked about protest. He talked about economic withdrawal. He used the phrase, referencing Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., saying, Jesse, what do you call it? Redistributing the pain. He name-checked companies that black folks in Memphis needed to be boycotting and pulling their money out of. That's what King would be doing. If King is alive, if King was alive, if Abernathy was alive, if James Orange was alive, if Septima Clark, if Fannie Lou Hamer, Bob Moses, Annie Lou Cooper, you talk about Miss Boynton, we can go on and on and on. Fred Shuttlesworth, you know what they would be doing? They'll be standing with those people saying, no, we're not going to work on January 23rd in Minneapolis. That's what they would be doing. And so I need black people. I need us to stop trying to have the nice and cute and go along to get along king, because you know what? It's just, no, we ain't do. Yeah, I was sitting here and Chuck Schumer was standing with the Commerce Secretary in New York today, touting jobs coming to New York State. And Luke Riddell is a reporter. Y'all gonna love this here. He said, the tweet was, when I asked Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick why Trump should get credit for jobs coming to CNY when he opposed the CHIPS Act, Schumer interjected, quote, we're not looking for one side or the other. Lutnick jumps in, we took a good start and made it great working together. Later on, Riddell interviewed Schumer, and he asked him, why did he do that? Schumer said he stepped in because, quote, today's a day for bipartisanship. Minutes later, Lutnick said the bill that Schumer wrote was full of, quote, DEI crap, and we cut out the bullshit. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. See, the Schumers of the world, oh no, this is a moment of bipartisanship. And Lutnick, when you're not around, trashes your own damn bill. This is how they play. And so what I am saying is, I need our folks to say, well, no, we're not playing that game. No. This is where we say, we are going to bring back radical king. That's what we're going to do. Bring that back. And so I need our folks. So when y'all go to these MOK events, all that little nicety stuff, so tomorrow at 6 p.m., when I speak at the City of Dallas's MLK Gala, I got a word for them. Because in this city, do you know what this city was about? In this city, it was called the City of Accommodation. Dallas didn't have a significant role in the civil rights movement. Now, there were individuals who were doing stuff, but it was called the City of Accommodation. Jim Schultz put out a book on this very issue. And what you still have today, you got some accommodating Negroes who are personally profiting, but our people as a whole are getting screwed. So, yeah, I'm going to have something to say. Dallas.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.